What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was the reincarnation of the original Devil King and Rias had to kneel before her true master? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. So why are we here again, Graphia? A handsome man with black spiky hair said as he scratched the back of his head. By looks he seemed to be in his mid-20s, and he was wearing a black cape with red lining and gold trimming. Under this, he wears a white robe-like shirt. He wears 3 belts. 2 belts around his stomach and another that dangles loosely around his waist. He was Naruto Ball, Uzumaki, and he was one of the heroes that helped them made the old Satan faction fall. Naruto was currently taking a walk down into one of the cities with his servant Graphia Lucifer. Graphia Lucifuge was a high-class woman with silver hair and silver eyes that seemed to take on a more serious outlook on life, which seemed to be there for the purpose of balancing out her master carelessness. She was seen wearing a maid's uniform, and she was frowning lightly at her master. In truth, she really did love him dearly, but in public he had told her many times that their reputation as the strong devil was at stake by treating each other with too much affection. Currently, they were trying to find something about the rumor that they both heard. The rumor about the White Dragon Emperor was the original Lucifer's descendant. We are here to search about any information about that rumor, Naruto-sama. Please remember about that next time. She pointed rudely as she noticed that Naruto was looking at some direction, and she looked at the direction where he was looking as well. There she noticed a blonde-haired child covered in dirt running towards them with an armful of bread in his arms, and by the tatters his clothes were in it was easy to tell that he was homeless. Yet, his body was very healthy, and not underfed like that of the usual homeless children. The boy noticed them, and he seemed too startled for a second before he heard a commotion coming from nearby. A vampire? Here? But what is he doing around here? Naruto thought with frown in his face when he saw the vampire that was running from them. Like the devils, vampires are residents of darkness that have existed since ancient times. They have similar rankings and weaknesses like that of high-class devils. However, devils are residents of the underworld while vampires are beings that live in the darkness of the human world. They may seem similar, but their views and culture differ greatly. The vampires are a race of supernatural creatures even more proud and aloof than the devils. In fact, the discrimination between vampires and other species is so strong that it has reached the point that even some poor breed will be treated badly and discriminated. But to think one of the noble vampires come into human village. It's really strange. They were both surprised when the boy looked behind him in a panic, before he suddenly vanished from their eyes, making the servant to be startled and muttered. Sacred gear. Yeah, Naruto said as he looked at the top building where he noticed a kid was running away. And some good one too, I believe. He said as he noticed someone came beside him. Damn it, the brat got away again. This is the 4th time this week. Why don't those monsters ever steal from somebody else? You hear me, you little brat? If you do this again I will catch you and gut you myself. The man shouted angrily toward the little vampire as he was the victim of the vampire that has just stolen his shop. Both devils were already notice a brown sheet that was shivering in fear, and neither really decided to tell the man that the thief that had stolen his bread was close by. It would seem that the man had given up anyway because he went back where he came from with an angry grunt. Graphia sighed. Hey you up there, why are yo kaya? She cried out as she felt somebody bump into her from behind and touched her rear end. Hey Nekosho brat, it looks like you get some jackpot there. Naruto said playfully, making the older woman frown as the white-haired girl that has pair of white cat ears that was sitting on the ground while rubbing her head. The girl shook her head, before she stood up and started to run away as Naruto smiled. Hey brat, great job, stealing her wallet there. He said while smirking as the cat girl suddenly stopped and Graphia quickly checked her pocket as she just noticed it. How did you? Noticed it? I already stealing even before you can walk with your leg, brat. Naruto said as Graphia walked into the girl and took her wallet back. She looked at the inside as she sighed. How about the others? She asked out with an annoyed, a very annoyed, tone to her voice that spoke volumes for how angry she really was. Naruto merely chuckled lightly as behind him suddenly appeared his clone with the little vampire from before, of course already taken. He said, smiling at his servant that was rolling her eyes. So where is your family, little girl? He asked as he bent down into the little girl level. I have no family. She emotionlessly replied as she looked away from Naruto's eyes. The couple felt a pang of sadness for the boy. Then Graphia quickly cut her sentences as she blocked the incoming lightning toward her as she looked at the source of the lightning. Gasper, Sharon, let's go NYA. A voice child yelled as Naruto wanted to run, but suddenly a kick came near his head and he blocked it with his hand and threw her away as she exploded into a white gas. And when Naruto and Graphia wanted to do something, the duo already vanished from their eyes as Naruto chuckled. Well, it seems that they got us today? He said while smiling as the maid sighed at his airheadiness. Please be serious about something like this, Naruto-sama. Graphia scolded as Naruto waved his hand and played with bread, Graphia's wallet and the boy's pocket money in his other hand. But still, Nekosho, huh? I thought none of them were left nowadays. Naruto said as he took a bite from the bread. Nekomata were so rare these days, that even in the already rare Nekosho race, they were considered more valuable than 10 castles worth of treasure these days. Any collector of yukai would be having an orgasm just by looking at a fine specimen like this one, healthy, young, and with flair of life. So do you know where are they going, Naruto-sama? Graphia asked while Naruto put the pocket money inside his pouch. Well, they are going into their hideout inside this town, so better keep your eyes out, thief tilde. Naruto said playfully as Graphia merely looked at him with bored eyes. Maybe it's better if you control that thing of yours? What is that thing, Graphia? Naruto asked playfully as Graphia sighed. Reading mind, she simply stated since Naruto's mind-reading capabilities was one of the 7 wonders of their old organization. I can't read minds, the man replied as he slowly got up. But I can read all of you better than all of you could. Naruto finished, smiling as he vanished from her eyes and she sighed. Mind reader and the ability to see the future? You never cease to surprise me, Naruto. Graphia said as she vanished as well. 3 Little Thieves hideout. Few minutes later. Kuroka-san, Sharon-san, I'm sorry. The blonde-haired vampire said as he bowed courtly into 2 girls in front of him. It's okay, Gasper, it's my fault, that man catches me first. The white-haired girl named Sharon assured her friend, Freeloader. To them money was a lot less important than food, so losing money were still okay as long as they still could stuff their stomach. Since they didn't even really use money, most of the time they would just use it as a method to help start a fire. Then once they had a fire going they would only need to gather sticks. It was rather funny that when they got money, they literally threw that money away by burning it. The oldest out of them smiled as she pulled both the younger one into her hug. No worries, NYA. Both of you are already doing pretty well except 2 of you, of course, NYA. She said coldly as behind them were Naruto and Graphia that were sitting on their mattress while eating popcorn. Before both younger children could do anything, Kuroka quickly struck both children in the back of the neck, knocking them both out. So how did you avoid all of those traps, NYA? Oh, that traps, I think it's bit kinky for children like you to play like that, so I kinda eliminate it, little girl. Naruto said as Graphia stepped front with an annoyed face. How did you know that both of us hiding here, little girl? Graphia asked. She was still rather ashamed that she had not noticed that her purse had been stolen from her until after she checked for how much money she had. It was a blow to her pride that somebody had stolen from her, and frankly it showed that she was getting lax with her sensing ability if a child had managed to steal something so important from her. And now added with the facts that some child was discovering her illusion technique. I didn't sense your power, I smelled you out. Not even you can hide your scent, Queen of Ice, NYA, and my sense of smell is too powerful for you to trick, NYA. Kuroka said with a frown on her face, her danger senses not going off yet for some reason. It was like somewhere in her she didn't register this guy as a threat, or at least that he wasn't going to attack them in cold blood without letting them put up a fight. That or he already did something toward her senses. Correct, I disrupt your senses there, little girl. Naruto said as the girl eyes widened. Don't need to be surprised there. You already do a good job to hide your thought and expression, but still not to me, little brat. He said as he summoned his black rectangular blade. So are you disrupting my sense too, Naruto-sama? Graphia asked as she tried to sense for Kuroka's aura, but was surprised when she found nothing. She could feel the aura of the 2 knocked out children, but the aura of the one standing in front of them was so well hidden that it was like it wasn't even there at all. They weren't being suppressed either, but it was like they didn't even exist. No, but I think she is hiding her aura with her senjutsu, 'Cause I feel that her aura is too thin and mixed with the environment around her. Naruto explained as the Nekomata smiled. As I expected from the strongest devils in entire universe, the rumor is really dwarf from what I see nya. Kuroka said as Naruto merely smiled. But there is something that I don't understand, Naruto said, making the servant beside him surprised as he pointed at Gasper that was still knocked out. Why are you bringing that Dampier there even though you should already know that he has sacred gear and blood of noble vampire inside him? He is friend and what's wrong with that nya? Kuroka asked with narrowed eyes, her yellow eyes glowing with power waiting to be unleashed. Now, don't be so hostile. We don't want any trouble, but here is your money back, he said as he tossed the pouch full of money to her. He didn't want to get the little kids to get hurt in this conflict, so he doesn't have any choice other than try and play the mediator role. He could already tell that Kuroka's and Graphia's opposite personalities would create friction between them. Not counting the fact that Kuroka had been killing many vampires and monsters with unknown power. But looking at her senjutsu prowess here, he doesn't need to ask about that. I don't need this money. She kicked the money away, she had no use for the money anyway other than for starting a fire. Why you? Graphia was stopped by Naruto as he walked to front. I don't know and don't care if you use that money to start the fire or what, but I want to talk with you about something, he said as the Nekomata narrowed her eyes. What do you want to talk nya? Naruto smirked. I will talk as soon as two children over there wake up from their facade, he said as Kuroka looked surprised that Sharon and Gasper were slowly wake up. How did you? Sharon asked, clearly confused at devil in front of her eyes. Just said that I am more troublemaker than three of you. Now, I will be honest with you when I ask you if this is the kind of life you want them to live, Naruto pointed out as Kuroka narrowed her eyes as she knew that despite the man's relaxed attitude, he already showed his family nature. The power of destruction. The power of destruction is a power that once was exclusive to the Ball clan that is called the Great King and is the highest ranking among the 72 pillars. As its name suggests, the power of destruction is a type of demonic energy that grants the user's explosive attack power to annihilate things. The rumor said, Naruto Ball already maximized his power into the point that he could literally or maybe rumor, making the explode that caused a construct of the universe. There is no other way to live for us, devils like you have it easy. You were born with a high status, and society looked to you as the future nya. We are considered to be the lowest part of low, and have to do anything we can to get up in the world nya. Yet, we are still happy. You have nothing that you can do to help us, she roared angrily as she hugged two children at her chest. Naruto sighed as he scratched the back of his head. Maybe you are right? I don't understand about living in underground like this or having two younger siblings if I could say, but I don't think that being chased while raising two children is good idea. So I have a proposal, he said as Graphia eyes widened in surprise. An offer nya? Kuroka asked in surprise. This was something she hadn't seen coming. Yup. If you agree about this I can assure that two Brad over there will get the best treatment in this world, he said scratching the back of his head. What is the catch nya? Kuroka asked with her arms crossed under her impressive rack, and Naruto nodded slightly at how she wasn't falling for how tempting he was trying to make the offer seem. Simple, you come with me and I leave those children into Gremory family, he said as he suddenly pinned down by the enraged Kuroka. Naruto-sama, Oni-san, Kuroka-san, you devil, do you think that I'm that stupid to sell my friend and sister into devils like you? Kuroka threatened as Naruto narrowed her eyes. I don't deny that I'm devil, but think about it, little girl. I know that living in discrimination of other people is hard, and not counting if you have friend and younger sibling. But do you think you can protect them, every day? I know that you are not that stupid to think other useless possibilities, he said with serious tone. How do I know if you aren't lying, King of Destruction? I don't blame if you don't trust me, but it's all I can do is I only can help you with money and things like this, he said as Kuroka looked away from the man's eyes. Kuroka was torn between choosing her own desire for a free life, or the safety and happiness of her younger sibling and friend. She could trade away all of their freedom for a happy life that wouldn't be completely filled with danger, or she could tell Naruto to stick his offer up his ass and potentially damn them all in the future. It was a gamble. She could do this and make sure her family was safe, or toss the offer away and throw away this chance of safety. The choice was obvious, but she just didn't want to make it. Give me time to think about it, Human village, town port. At night, near the town, there is a port and on the promenade protruding to the sea. Its floor tiles were lined up to imitate bricks. There was a short staircase with a semicircular platform on its end. Two old-fashioned benches were encircled within silver railings. And at that place, Naruto was leaning on the simple vertical railing as the sea breeze played around with his black cape. "So you are here, Naruto-sama?" Graphia said as he turned to see her. "It's rare for you to find me this late, Graphia," Naruto said while smiling as she sighed and leaned his impressive S to the railing and looked at the sea. It was such a peaceful place. There weren't any stores or any people around. On the opposite side of the promenade, he could sometimes see a figure passing by. But this place felt like it was in a different dimension compared to that side. "Why are you doing that?" Graphia asked out the question. Naruto smiled as he answered, "I don't know." "You don't know?" "Yeah, maybe part of me wanted to help her or maybe it's my ego to help her, whatever it's I don't understand at all," he explained while smiling. "I think I know what that is," Graphia said as he looked at her with confused look. "That is what makes me wanted to come with you, instead of following Sirzax and the others." "Really, I think that you are following me because I'm handsome," he said playfully. "Yeah, that's one of them," she said smiling gently, making his violet eyes widened as he looked away hiding his embarrassment. The silence came between them as Naruto looked up. "Hey, Graphia? Do you still remember when I told you about my past?" "Yes, what's wrong with that?" she asked as Naruto smiled sadly. "Maybe I remember with myself when I looked at three of them," Naruto said as he remembered about his past life in elemental country. He was still young, crying as he was surrounded by a crowd of adults. "You killed my children," one shouted as a rock was thrown at his face. "Demon brat," yelled another as he kicked the young boy. "You monster," added one more as a kunai was stabbed in his arm. They shouted over and over as they inflicted unimaginable pain upon his young body. They all wished for his death because they thought he was a monster. That he found irony because he was indeed a monster now. "You mean, you are living the life that same with three of them in your past life?" "More or less same, but more importantly that I understand their feeling," Naruto said as he grinned remembering his childhood, the time where he was still innocent and naive. "They just wanted to be acknowledged by another people. So because of that you recommend them to join Sirzax family?" "Yeah," Naruto said while smiling. "Gremory family. The house that produced the current Lucifer. Members of the Gremory clan is characterized with their red hair color and their powerful magic talent, and lately some of them have power of destruction from Naruto's aunt. But the reason he trusted them instead of his family because their extraordinary affection among the devils. As such, they do not discriminate themselves with their servants. So how about your plan?" Your plan to come back home, into your original world." "Of course I will do that. I still have a promise with her, after all," Naruto said while smiling as Graphia's expressions became sad as she looked at the star above them. "Can't you let this promise go?" she said with sad tone as Naruto looked at her and smiled gently. "What's this? Is my queen feeling lonely, when her master gone tilde?" Naruto smiled while ruffling her silver hair, making her to blush in her own embarrassment. "Don't worry Graphia, I will stay here after coming home," he said making the silver-haired woman shocked. "I will stay here because, my lovely woman here doesn't want to leave me," he said as she became blushed more deeply, like she will explode any time. A freezing breeze blew from the sea. Turning to face it, Naruto took another glance at the sea. "We should get back soon." "Yeah, you're right. If we catch a cold and end up missing their answer for tomorrow, everything will be for nothing." "Yeah," Naruto said as he walked out from that place with Graphia followed him. Lying on a small rock in the middle of a wide open space, Naruto looked at the night stars fascinated as he muttered, "What a good night today." After leaving the underworld and knowing he could not just stay anywhere too long due to his power signature being recognizable, his usual form of lodging was sleeping outside since it gave him the best option of not being found. Being one with nature and enjoying the wind hitting his face always eased the bald devil and always put a smile on his face. It was peaceful, and peaceful is what he was looking for. A few months had passed since he left those children. Now he and Graphia were currently nearing a small town by the name of Kyoto. Since he had traveled pretty much the entire world during his 200 years away from home, there was honestly little left for him to see, and more he began staying in certain countries that he enjoyed, with Japan being at the top of the list. He just found Japanese culture and the country itself very beautiful and a pleasant place to live in. As he neared the town of Kyoto, he could sense some yokai and even some other creature within the town, but it was nothing that he could not handle. None were above the power level of a high-class devil except one. But it wasn't wrong to keep cautious, so he used his clone to patrol around the town. As he looked at the stars and pondered, his thoughts went back to those children again. The tale of Graveyard, Kyoto. Few months ago. So how is it? I think it's the good place for their grave, right? Naruto said as he, Graphia and Kuroka were standing in front of Kuroka's parent new graves that were located in city of Yukai, Kyoto. Naruto-san, I'm so sorry for what I said NYA. What you did for our family is beyond anything that we can give back to you NYA. Kuroka said as Naruto only looked at Graphia that merely shrugged. It's okay, Kuroka-chan, the good is that those brats have a good life, right? Naruto said while grinning as Kuroka just nodded her head while smiling thinly. Gasper-kun, Shiro, Kuroka started as she addressed her siblings while standing next to them. Instead of the scraps of clothes they had been wearing before, now they wore real clothes. Gasper was wearing a simple clothes consist of shirt and black pants, while Sharon wore a small yellow dress. She didn't get to finish her sentence though when she felt Sharon give her a now sad face as today was the last day that Kuroka will be with them. That isn't my name anymore. I will change my name, so anyone will not hurt because of me. Sharon said with a sad tone, something that the three adults couldn't help but wince at. The girl that was formerly named Sharon had taken the news that they would soon be little more than playthings for a girl really well. She assumed that it was the best for all of them as she always thought that she was a burden for her older sister happiness and at least if people around her was happy then she will be alright. At first Naruto already reasoned her that it was okay if she didn't want to as he didn't push them to do that. But she insisted him to make it happen as she just didn't want to burden her sister more than what she already did for her. Naruto-san, Graphia-san. I really thank you for what you two did for us and we will pay this debt one day. Sharon said while smiling as Naruto looked at Graphia and she stepped front. It's okay Sharon, we are happy to help you too, you know. She said while ruffling her white hair gently. How about you Gasper-kun, have you met that Rias girl yet? Yuha, she is really nice, but a little weird. I thought devils were supposed to be upper meanies, but she was really nice. I really like her pretty hair. Gasper said as he pretended to be strong for Sharon and Kuroka. She also named me Kaneko now. The now renamed Kaneko said with thin smile as Graphia started to praise both of them for their bravery to do something like that while Kuroka and Naruto was watching them a bit distant. So are you worried with them? Naruto asked as Kuroka nodded. It will be lie, if I say I don't worry about those two, but as you said before. Kuroka said looking at Kaneko and Gasper that pretend to be strong in front of her. Quote ellipsis. They are really too good kid NYA. She said with expressions that she didn't want her family see. She was a big sister who always looked dignified, powerful, attractive, and strong-willed while also beautiful. But only now her shoulders looked thin. Moreover, the girl appeared to be fragile. You're surprisingly not that resolved, ain't you? Naruto teased as Kuroka chuckled. Ahahahaha. Maybe it's right after all. Kuroka said as she folded her hand under her massive S. Sorry if I must break your family apart Kuroka, he muttered sadly while looking at Graphia that had her last time with the duo. Kuroka spontaneously smiled mischievously, that's so unlike you. Oh, shut up. Even I want to express my sorry properly for once. Especially in front of such a good older sister like you, Naruto said making Kuroka blush hearing that compliment. Naruto sighed as he looked at the stars above them. Are you will be okay? You know that you will join some terrorist group to give information to me. Are you okay to do that? Maybe, Kuroka answered as Naruto raised his eyebrow. You're not confident? Not that, or else I wouldn't say it. But, Kuroka said as she tried to hide her expressions with her hooded jacket. Maybe it will be the last time I will meet both of them. She said with sad expression as Naruto sighed and patted her head. You will be alright, don't worry I give you my promise for that. Naruto said as Kuroka looked at his serious expression and nodded to assure him. You, too NYA. Do your best in trying not to make what you've said become such a liar NYA tilde, Kuroka said playfully while smiling as Naruto grinned at her for his answer. Naruto and Grafia watched as Kaneko walked away with Gasper following after her and talking to her about everything and nothing at the same time. Are you worried about them? Naruto asked as he took a look at his servant. Nope, because they are a good children, Grafia said with sad smile in her face. But it will be lie if I said that I am not worried about their well-being with Sirzek's family. Naruto scratched the back of his hair as he looked at the Nekosho parents' grave. They will be hurt eventually. If they were to join her peerage, then they would no doubt go through a rating game. If they were to do that, then they would get hurt. It is very rare for anyone to die in a rating game though, and a great team of medics is usually there to take care of injuries. Naruto stated in matter-of-fact tone as Grafia merely sighed. Rating game. It is a competition between two devils with a peerage. The rating game shares many similarities with the board game chess. The rating game itself was created by Ajuka Beelzebub with Naruto, idiotic. Note that he left behind in his room. The rating game is used to measure a devil's strength, which will reflect their social standing in the underworld. In fact, the rating game is so famous that the top 10 ranked are considered as heroes to the devils. The game takes the form of a strategic battle between the king and her pieces. It is fought on a map of their choosing, and can be created to be a perfect replica of any location they desire. Only matured devils are allowed to participate in official rating games. The servants of the devils are named after the pieces of chess: rook, knight, queen, bishop, and pawn. Only devils with peerages can become the king piece. The maximum number of players in a rating game is 16, and like the game of chess, the players lose when their king loses. Don't worry, Naruto said as he remembered their eyes when he met them for the first time. They are going to be alright. Because they are the children that will change the future, he said as she nodded in agreement. Tengu Mountain, Kyoto. Current time. Are you thinking about something hard again? Grafia whispered as he turned his head and looked at her that was carrying a coffee for him. Thanks Grafia, Naruto said as he took the coffee from her hand and sipped it. Grafia looked at him for a minute as she asked, what were you thinking about? You looked lost there for a moment. He didn't answer right away, but when he did he just said 2 words. Those kids. She now sighed as she put her head on his hand, showing him that she was thinking the same thing as him. She knew that both of them already fond to those little rascals and her heart did go out with them too. Then perhaps it's time to visit them. It's been kind long if you ask me. Grafia said as Naruto shook his head lightly. Naruto turned his attention to Star. We shouldn't do that, Grafia. He said with a thin smile as he imagined what those kids were doing with Sirzek's little sister. They are currently doing their best, and if we showed them how worried are we to them, then we will ruin their image about how cool are we to them. Grafia, who heard about that, merely smiled as she leaned more to him. Yeah, that's maybe right. She said as Naruto smiled at her and he put his hand around her. Lately, I've been having a thought. Thought? Yes, a boy and a girl, both would be okay. My feelings get even stronger when I remember Gasper-kun and Kaneko-chan. Naruto said as Grafia nodded her head in agreement. Yeah, Gasper is a good boy, and I also don't get bored of Kaneko since she has the cuteness of a small animal. Grafia said her reason as Naruto looked at her and smiled gently. Hey Grafia, when you get married in the future, would you prefer a boy or a girl? That's a hard question. My dream will be fulfilled if I have twins and they are a boy and a girl, but it seems like taking care of them will be twice as hard. Grafia answered while imagining her dream to take care of children like Kaneko and Gasper. As Grafia was still imagining about her children, Naruto smiled as he pulled her closer to him. You know, if both of us married, I will gladly make as many kids as you want. Cough. Grafia coughed in surprise as she looked at him with a very red face and more importantly happy face. Ha 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 ha, I'm just kidding, alright, don't take it seriously, okay? He laughed out as a tick mark appeared on her head. Grafia, he said as he looked at Grafia that was cloaked in black aura and temperature around them started to go down. Hey, are you anger? Dzing. Yukai Village, Kyoto. Few minutes later. Yo, Kurama, what you doing? Naruto asked as he looked at the red-haired lady that was writing on some papers. Paperwork. The woman grumbled. Why does everyone have an urgent need to bring their every problem to my desk? Ah, paperwork. The bald patted Kurama back lightly in commiseration. I think that's the only good thing I've enjoyed since I came here. Oi, you saying you don't enjoy the food? Don't forget the beautiful ladies. he said as both of them chuckled at that. Kurama no Yoko, or what people called as Kyuubi no Akuma, is an extremely powerful yokai that is on par with an ultimate class devil, the leader of the yokai in Kyoto and former Biju that entrapped inside Naruto body. Kurama has both a human form and a fox form. In her human form, she appears as a young woman with a voluptuous figure and red hair with matching eyes. She also dresses in red coat over her black shirt and blue jeans. But when she was sealed inside Naruto's body, she has the appearance of a giant nine-tailed fox with red fur, hence her hair. "So why are you calling me here?" Naruto asked as Kurama looked at him. "I figured while we talk I could visit a young kitsune girl. As you know, it's our mating season soon, and this will be the first big one for this girl now that she is of age. I want to make sure she is prepared." "Mating season, huh?" Naruto said as he grinned at his memory. "I remember those times too well. I got a call almost every couple of hours to come and satisfy you last time, didn't I?" She tried to slap him, but he avoided it with ease as she quirked her eyes at the beaten up and ragged Naruto. A tiny smirk curled the corner of her lips. "Graphia?" The strongest devil looked away and scratched his cheek. "Ah. Yeah, honestly, you two might as well just get married. At least then any wounds you might get would be worth it," Kurama said, smiling as she leaned on her chair. "What are you talking about, Kurama? I'm like a brother to her. I've only known her the best. That's all." "Are you sure? I think you two make a good couple, you know?" Yeah, whatever makes you sleep better tonight," he said dryly as the fox lady chuckled. "So what's wrong with that girl actually?" "She's nervous. There is a boy she likes and she wants to make sure she can control herself when the time comes. You know what happens when we lose control." "Oh right," Naruto said as he started to remember about that. It only happened once, but Kurama had completely given into her primal urges and lost control of it. She basically tried to jump him at every turn and got very violent about it. In the end, Graphia had to encase her inside the ice cage because she was becoming too unpredictable. "And what about you?" he asked as she looked at him. "If mating season is round the corner, then have you thought about putting another bun in the oven, so to speak?" The answer he got was a light laugh as she placed her head on his shoulder. "Oh, maybe in a few more years. Right now that girl is more than enough. Why you offering to help?" Naruto raised his eyebrow. "Don't tell me that you want to be caged inside ice cell again?" he asked teasingly as Kurama light laughed at that. "I guess you're not the type to take an interest in little girl," she said jokingly as both of them chuckled at that. "Psyuh. It seems that our barrier is breached. I wonder who the idiot who do that is," Kurama said as she stood up and stretched her hands upward. "Wanna come?" she asked while smiling at Naruto as he answered with only smiling, and both of them suddenly vanished. Just outside the building were two men and two women, each with a pair of black wings neatly folded on their backs. Fallen angels. As the two dropped down from the roof, two more fallen angels walked out of one of the lower apartments, one with a pair of wings and the other with two pairs of wings, which signaled he was the strongest of the little group. What caught their main attention, though, was the young girl that was draped across the other fallen angel's shoulders. "Let's get going. Lord Kokabiel will want to run tests on this one," the strongest member of the group said as the rest of them all nodded to his words. They stretched their wings and were about to fly when a cough interrupted them. Looking over, they saw Naruto and Kurama watching them and leaning against a nearby car, one looking angry and the other bored. "Yo," Naruto said with a small wave each before quickly noticed the glares that were sent their way. "A devil and a kitsune," they all hissed out while the fallen with four's wings quickly went into the air to make a quick escape with their hostage. Before he could get very high, though, a powerful slam hit his chest that forced him back to the ground and land on his back. He sat there in a daze for a couple of moments before he winced at the pain, shakily stood up. All he had seen was only black blur. Quickly he turned toward the ever-smiling Naruto that leaned to his big sword. "That man," he hissed out as a light spear appeared in his hand as the other fallen looked at him strangely. "Sir, he never moved," one of the females said as Naruto smirked and gave him a taunt with her index finger, indicating for them to come get some. "Impossible. I know what I saw even if it was brief. He hit me. No one can possibly move that fast. I guess they don't know me very well, huh, Kurama?" Naruto said as Kurama merely smiled. She had seen him move and was one of the very few that were able to. "Hey fallen bastard, I think that you are kidnapping Ronyukai today, so I ask you with the utmost sincerity. Do you want to die or not?" he asked, flipping his sword, and leaned it on his shoulder with ease. Their response was creating a batch of light spear in their arms and in the air of various colors. All Naruto could do was sigh and scratch his head. "Don't say I didn't warn you," he told them before turning to look at Kurama. "You want this one, Kurama?" Her answer was a smile as she shrugged and Naruto sighed. "Better hope my luck didn't go shitty today," he said as he swung his black blade. BANNNNNNNNNNNG. A large cloud of smoke surrounded the ground as the power of destruction obliterated upon the rough earth, bringing forth a maelstrom of absolute destruction. Silence permeated the area after the big explosion of power of destruction. Not long after the end of the attack, the dust cleared, revealing Naruto and Kurama that was protected by some kind barrier. "Man, it's surely hard to control this old man power, huh?" he said while laughing as Kurama's sweat dropped. "If you are old, then what does that make me?" "Wizened, of course," he said, giving her a big grin which only served to make her eyes roll before putting off the barrier around them. Watching as she moved to stand next to him, Naruto clicked his fingers and watched as from the remnant of power of destruction it slowly reconstruct the parking lot and dimension around him that was tore apart by that explosion. "So what are you doing now?" Naruto asked, tilting his head to Kurama. "I will go back to my home and wait for this one to wake up. I want to make sure they tried nothing on her when she is inside my place," Kurama said, taking the unconscious girl as she turned her head toward Naruto. "How about you, brat? Wanted to come as well?" Naruto, who heard it, merely smiled, having been used to her attitude for as long as he knew. She knew him just as well as he knew her. "Alright Kurama, let's go back to your place," he said as both of them teleported, leaving the newly made parking lot. The Kyuubi landed on the mountain range and began looking around for the one that brought it here to this area. Still furious about the events that transpired earlier, the Kyuubi was desperately looking around to vent on something. That something sadly was the Yondaime Hokage, who landed near the Kyuubi, but he was not alone. In his left hand he was carrying a child, his son Naruto, and in his right was his wife Kushina. "I have to set up a barrier. I'm almost out of chakra," Minato said, panting heavily. "I can still fight?" Kushina said weakly as she began materializing chakra chains which shot out of her back and surrounded the Kyuubi in an attempt to hold it in place. Now? Q-chan, calm down, Databane, she said before coughing out some of her own blood until she heard the sound of her son crying. "I guess we woke him up? Sorry, Naruto, nay? Minato-kun, I'm going to draw Q-chan in and kill myself afterwards. That way, we can put Q-cha's resurrection on hold, cough cough, that's the only way I can help you." She looked at the love of her life, smiling, trying her best not to cry or look sad. "Thank you for everything," she looked at her husband. "Minato, don't look like that. Don't look sad, smile. I'm happy. You love me, and it's his birthday today, we're supposed to be happy," she said with tears forming in the side of her eyes. "Don't cry. When I think about what our life would be like together, if I live, I can only picture happiness. If there's one thing I'll regret, it's that cough cough I won't get to see Naru-chan grow up." Hearing what the words of his wife, Minato steeled his resolve. If this was going to be the day that he dies, he might as well go out doing something for the world. "Kushina, you don't need to die with the Kyuubi. I'll seal your remaining chakra inside Naruto with a Hake Fuin, then I will take the Kyuubi down with me. Using the Shiki Fujin, but that seal will kill you. I know, but with it I can seal half of the Kyuubi's power forever. The other half, I will seal in Naruto with the Hake Fuin." "I know what you're going to say, Kushina. I know the life of a Jinchuriki can be hard, but I believe in our son. As the host, he will create the future, and for that I entrust him with my life." Minato, but Kushina tried to retort only to stop, realizing that this was going to be her last moments with her husband. "I, Hitsuji, you, Inu, nay, Tori, Uma, said Minato while doing the accompanying hand seals, "have faith in this child, Kushina. He's our son after all." With a clap of his hand, the faith of one Namikaze Minato was sealed. "Shiki Fujin," Minato said as an apparition of death itself appeared behind him, ready to perform the task of sealing the Kyuubi in exchange for his mortal. Looked at his wife with a sad smile in his face. "I want you to promise me I want you to help him out when he tries to control the Kyuubi. But he's our son. I don't want him to bear. Q-chan, to preserve balance between bice. For our country? Our village? There's no reason to sacrifice him for that. You shouldn't sacrifice yourself for me. Me being the sacrifice was enough. Minato didn't reply, he just continued looking at her. I am willing to die for my son. That is the only thing I can do for him as a father, he said to her, smiling. The spirit of death pushed its hand into Minato, passing through him and eventually reaching for the bound Kyuubi, who for some unknown reason wasn't struggling. Fuin, Tengu Mountain, Kyoto. Current time. Violet eyes snapped open and a black-haired man surged upwards, stumbling out of the bed towards the toilet. His bed companion, shocked awake the sudden movement, blearily wiped at her eyes. Carefully she shrugged on a thick robe and approached the toilet from where she could hear retching sounds. Naruto. Are you alright? Naruto shakily breathed. I'm alright. It was just a bad dream. Just a bad dream, he said, wiping his mouth, smiling weakly. Graphia frowned and elegantly sat down outside the toilet door, drawing her knees up to her chest for warmth. Another nightmare? She asked casually. Chuckling lightly, Naruto washed his face and slid down the door onto his butt. Yeah, he said as he grabbed his face and smiled lightly. The two of them fell silent, until Graphia spoke again. Was it a memory? She queried lowly. Naruto chuckled from his own position behind the door, only the thin piece of wood stopping their backs from touching, one from before I even could talk now. It's been a while since I've dreamed of that one, Tilda, he replied playfully as the girl merely sighed. Graphia looked at the ceiling as she asked, did you see what your parents looks like? Naruto shook his head, though he knew his friend couldn't see it, just that my father has blonde and blue eyes, where my mother has red hair and violet eyes. So you have your mother eyes now? She asked as Naruto chuckled. I suppose you can say it like that, he said while smiling weakly at the remembering of that dream. Silence. Naruto, I think you better stop trying to get home, Graphia suddenly said. A hint of desperation entered her voice. I think you already noticed, but the more you try to come back the more your power prevent to do so, and we both know what is the worst that come to you. Don't you understand how everyone who cares about you feels, watching in despair as you slowly disappear? Naruto gritted his teeth as if it will comes blood. He knew that if he still tried to force himself to come into contact or observe the multiple worlds in the boundary, it will only mean one thing. If not destroying his mind first, it will feel like not only losing everything one ever was, but also everything one could ever be. In a sense, it takes away one's past and future. But his promise was also something important for him, and he knew deep inside his heart he still wanted to be a Hokage, so the only thing he could said was, I won't disappear. Graphia tightened her fist angrily, resolutely holding back her tears as she chuckled humorlessly. Can you promise that? There was no answer. I didn't think so, Graphia said as she walked toward the bed and covered her head with the pillow. At the other hand, Naruto merely looking at the ceiling as he punched the air really hard that it makes a big crack into another dimension, then he grabbed his head. Why I am so fixated to that damned place, he muttered while cursing himself for those stupid dreams. Kuoh, riverbank. Next day. Psyuh. The sound of something hit the water surface reverberated around the lake. The reason was the two who was fishing was sitting on a boat at the middle of the lake. One of them was none other than the King of Destruction, Naruto Ball. He was sitting on ship deck with his hand holding the fishing rod. Naruto yawned loudly as he rubbed his eyes. He really wanted to sleep right now. Come on Naruto, don't you think it's fun fishing like this? His companion set out cheerfully and smiled to the lazy Ball. He is a man appearing to be in his 20s with average build, black hair and golden bangs and a black goatee. His eyes color is various colors of purple, depending on the light and surroundings. Well, I have a life and job unlike you, damned governor. Naruto replied flatly, though he had a small mischievous smile on his face. That seemed hit the mark, as Naruto could feel that his companion started to release some pure killing intent. So you think that I'm not that busy, you damn Ball? Oh, so you get my point, Azazel, he said while smiling mischievously. Yes, Naruto's companion was none other than Azazel, Governor General of the Fallen Angels and Grigori. Last night, after his fighting with Graphia, he heard from Kaneko about the strange activity in Kuoh as he had head straight into Grigori's headquarters to ask about that problem. To say that fallen angels suddenly came into chaos is understatement. The king of destruction suddenly come into Grigori's headquarters with his sword and power of destruction ready to deliver anyone in his sight into hell or limbo. So what do you want? I doubt you just want to talk with me, damned governor. Naruto said coldly as Azazel gulped. He had never liked this man. Being the strongest of the fallen angels and its de facto leader already put him on bad terms. And from the few meetings he had with Azazel he could see the man was brilliantly smart like a Juka but more insane and pervert. While the man was strong, it was his mind and tactics that many had to keep on their weak side still developing. Before he fell he was one of heaven's best and would have been a seraph if he had not given in to his desires and sins. In the last decade there has been a group beginning to form that could very easily pose a threat to not only the human world but the underworld and heaven as well. This group is a little different from the other sort of groups or factions that have been put together in the past. Naruto nodded slightly while listening to what the man had to say. The group is not just solely one faction but made up multiple factions, each which has a different species of creature occupying it. Angels, fallen angels, devils, strays, magicians, yokai. You name it, they have all joined this group. He spoke serious before his eyebrows shot up in surprise when he heard Naruto chuckle. From the sound of what you're describing I think I am correct when I say you are talking about the Chaos Brigade? He asked, getting a bigger surprised look from Azazel. You know? He asked as Naruto sighed. Of course I know. You don't think I would not know about a group like that getting together. You would have to be a fool not to take notice of something this by. But how do you know them? Azazel asked, cutting the ball as he looked at him. They start to attack me first, of course. He answered, getting surprised look from the governor as he waved his hand nonchalantly. Stop worrying, okay. I already killed them with ease. Azazel nodded as he glanced at the ball. He knew he would have to try and keep tabs on the ball just in case he was lying. So does anybody know about that organization? He asked, looking at his friend. No, but I think your old buddies, the four Satans, are beginning to notice. I have noticed Searzex and Ajuka sending some of their peerage out more and more lately on recon missions. The governor explained as Naruto smirked. Not surprising, Naruto spoke before looking at the sky. Hey, fallen bastard, why are you telling me this? Why me of all people? Well, that's easy. Because you are smart, and if members of the old Satan faction get involved, who else can deal with them? He said as Naruto yawned. So you want me to put all of them into the hole where they came from? Yes, but even you can't do it alone, Azazel told seriously. From what I can tell they will target the underworld eventually. Whether it's people or land, a new potential war will rekindle, and sooner or later underworld will need you and Graphia. Since when did you start caring about devils? Naruto asked with widened eyes. I don't give the damn about them actually, he said, shrugging. But many of my friends live in the underworld, and you and I both know what war can cause for them and us. Only the pain, suffering and death it brings. I don't want to see another war break out, he said with sad face as Naruto glanced at him. So you mean that you want a true peace using this opportunity instead of small nearly destroyed paper? Naruto said, noticing where the conversation was leading towards. In response, Azazel nodded. If we have any chance, then the best way may be for the three factions to align, he said happily as Naruto smiled. He maybe hated Azazel, but he still liked that side from him. Well then you can count on me, if you need any help, fallen bastard. Naruto said as the fallen angel looked surprised and looked at the ball that was smiling, and he smiled too. In that case, you think you could do a favor for me? He asked while throwing her fishing rod once again. Sure, what is that? Well, there is kid I want you to look at who recently became a devil. Recently became a devil under Rias Gremory. He has a lot of potential, and I have a feeling he is going to be right at the center of what's to come, he said as Naruto raised his eyebrow. Hearing about some reincarnated devil under Searzek's younger sister, he became interested. He never see Searzek's younger sister, but he heard that she was one hell beautiful girl. Sure, what's so special about that kid? Naruto asked as Azazel chuckled. Well, he is apparently the Red Dragon Emperor, Azazel said as Naruto let out the sound. Huh? Japan, Kuoh Academy. 2 weeks later. Naruto looked at his watch as he heard the sound of footsteps. Well, you're late 45 seconds there, Graphia, he said as he watched that his servant cleaned some ice dust on her clothes. Fallen angel. An exorcist, but only third class, she explained as she walked to him. So that's Rias Gremory? She asked while looking at the 18-year-old girl who was currently taking part in a skirmish in front of Kuoh Academy. Rias Gremory was a young woman who appears to be in her late teens with light skin, blue eyes and a buxom figure that he recognized really well, knowing her look same like his aunt if not because her crimson hair. They were currently watching as the young Gremory girl was fighting a 10-winged fallen angel alongside her peerage and to his surprise 2 followers of the church, with one wielding a holy sword and the other wielding what looked like the Durandal. So what is our job this time? Grafia asked folding her hand across her chest as he shook his head. We don't have any job, we only observe them and help them if needed. Naruto said as he looked at Kaneko that was fighting and smiled. Look, she applied her senjutsu there. He pointed as Grafia smiled. Of course she could do that. Grafia said as she puffed her beautiful chest. Who do you think training those kids? But still, where is Gasper, I wonder? She said looking around the field, but didn't find any sight of the vampire Shota. I think he is being sealed because he is still afraid to use his sacred gear, Naruto said, looking at the old school building where Gasper is sealed. Naruto, look at that. Grafia said pointing at some direction as he looked at it and his eyes widened. From what he could see, few high school students were creating a barrier around the school with their energy. The devil's signature felt strongly like his old friend Seraphal. Maybe one of them is Lord Cetri new child. I did hear Lord and Lady Cetri had another child some time ago. He said as he stood up and leaned his sword on his shoulder. You want to get it? Grafia asked as Naruto nodded after messaging his sore shoulder. Want me to help? Nah, I don't need things like that, Grafia. Naruto said as she watched her master vanished with a black lightning and smiled. I think it's time for me to work. Grafia said as she summoning a big ice to surround the school, much to Cetri's peerage confusion. Kuoh Academy, the battlefield. At the same time, Yuto Kiba and Xenovia were working together, a sight that was almost unbelievable, to defeat Freed, the man who was wielding the combined Excaliburs. When compared to the holy demonic sword, which Kiba called Sword of Betrayal, and the Durandal, the 4 parts of Excalibur really didn't seem all that impressive. Kiba and Freed were clashing blades at incredible speeds, and the latter was clearly at a disadvantage. The renewed Knight of the Gremory fueled himself with an unprecedented amount of fighting spirit and determination, and his movements were getting increasingly fluid and powerful as time went by. Freed, despite holding a holy sword against a devil, was being pushed back further and further, until finally his sword was cut in half. It broke? Cried the crazed man in shock. Kiba smiled and slashed through Freed's shoulder for good measure. My power has surpassed that of Excalibur, said the knight as Freed fell to the ground groaning in pain. Xenovia stood next to Kiba with a smile. Nice technique, Yuto Kiba, that was most impressive. Thank you, Xenovia-san. This should be impossible, stuttered out Valpyr as he backed away from the scene in fear. Opposing forces shouldn't be able to work in sync like that. Something is terribly wrong. The man was trembling on his feet as he backed away from Kiba and Xenovia. Freed was down and he had nobody to protect him. I am going to end you, Valpyr, muttered Kiba with a strong glare. Valpyr suddenly had an enlightened expression on his face as he fell to the ground with a crazed smile. His fingers were twitching uncontrollably as a demented laugh escaped his lips. I understand now, it must be because the Satans and God what? The voice asked from far away, all the way back to the main school building. Kiba instantly turned back to face the new voice. Who's there? Rias, Akano, Issei, Asia, and Kaneko all turned back to see who was the one who said that, but all they saw was a shadow that was still covered by the darkness. The silhouette became increasingly apparent as it walked up to the scene. Naruto-san, Kaneko cried out as she walked to him. What are you doing here? She asked as Naruto smiled and patted her hair. Well, I wanted to take stroll around and hear this commotion, so I come here. Naruto said as he looked at Kokabiel and Freed Selzen. But it seems you are in deep trouble, huh? He commented as Kokabiel narrowed his eyes. So weak, Kokabiel said arrogantly from the sky sensing Naruto's level power. Do I really seem so weak in Sirzek's eyes that he only sends lackey to fight me? A soft laugh escaped his lips as he shook his head. No matter, this town is going to vanish in a few minutes and all of you will be dead. I'm sure that will teach Sirzek not to underestimate me next time. Kokabiel placed his hands on his hips as he chuckled, looking down at everyone with glaring condescension. No way, Valpier muttered weakly as he knelt in a pool of his own blood. He is no lackey, he muttered as Naruto looked at him and smiled. Hey, you are Valpier, right? Well, it seems you are pretty good now. How are you? Still pretty kicking with bad guy? Naruto asked playfully while smiling. Well, whatever. I just need to kill you too and everything is ended, right? HMPH. It seems that you are taking me lightly. Kokabiel said arrogantly. Well, you will die too. Kokabiel-sama. Valpier cried out as loudly as he could. He is not just any person, he is the underworld's most powerful devil. Everyone's eyes widened again at the announcement. The King of Destruction, Naruto Ball. The King of Destruction. Rias cried out as the others surprised at that, except Kaneko, who only tilted her head to side. You're that famous? Kaneko said innocently as the other's face fell hearing that. She was shocked, but not like the others who shocked after hearing name. She was shocked to hear that a person like Naruto was the underworld's strongest devil and the person that rumored as the only devil to challenge all gods and won. King of Destruction, huh? Kokabiel said interested. It's hard to believe that if you look at the fact that you have such a weak magic power like that. He said proudly while laughing as Naruto leaned on his sword and smiled. Well, I don't think that fallen bastard subordinate is such a petty and coward to attack bunches of newbie too. Naruto said while smiling as Kokabiel visibly looked angry and growled, which made him chuckled. Naruto-sama? Rias called as he turned to Rias, who looked at him with unsure look. Are you on our side? Naruto smiled and waved his hand nonchalantly. Yes, my business here is only to deal with this bastard as he is waking the neighborhood right now. He said, which making the other's sweat dropped. Rias stepped forward and walked closer to Naruto. In that case then we will work together. We have to defeat Kokabiel before that Earthbreaker spell obliterates this town. Ha 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 ha. Kokabiel laughed at the sight below him. Even if you are the strongest devil you won't be able to beat me. The man lifted his arms above his head as light gathered above him. To hell with the Earthbreaker spell. I will destroy all of you right here and now. A light spear formed between Kokabiel's hands, and it quickly grew in size. It glowed brighter and brighter as it continued to grow, and soon it was the size of a small building. I am going to destroy this town, and mark the beginning of the Second Great War. The light spear reached the ceiling of the barrier, and it was strong enough to make a small crack in the ice barrier. A light spear of that size will destroy this town several times over. Kiba cried as he stood protectively in front of his cane. Shit, what the hell do we do? Issei cried as he held his boosted gear in front of his body. Naruto remained silent and just looked up at Kokabiel with his hands still in his pockets. Akeno, cried Rias as she looked back at her queen. Come over here. The black-haired girl quickly ran over to her cane. Issei, quickly boost up as many times as you can. Transfer as much power as you can to us and we will make the strongest barrier we can. Hi, bucko. It won't work. Naruto yawned as he looked over at Rias and her peerage. With your current level power, there is no way you can power up enough to block an attack like that. Rias gritted her teeth and glared at Naruto. Then what do you suggest we do? Just wait and die? Naruto turned back and looked up at Kokabiel. No, just stand there and let me take care of it. He said, ignoring the looks everyone else was giving him. Naruto broke away from the group and walked closer to Kokabiel, whose spear was still growing in size. With this attack, I will have killed Lucifer's sister, Leviathan's sister, the Psychiryute, and the King of Destruction. Kokabiel was laughing as he held his spear. With this both Michael and Sirzex will come for the Grigori. Everyone tensed up as he pulled his spear back and proceeded to launch it downwards to them. Die! The gargantuan spear of light was extremely bright, and it was becoming larger and larger as it came crashing down to the ground. Not so fast, bastard. Naruto said as the gargantuan spear of light suddenly vanished. What is going on? Cried Kokabiel angrily. I told you, we should leave, Kokabiel-sama. Valpier cried in fear. Looking around his body, everyone saw that Naruto was cloaked in black aura, pure essences of power of destruction. He destroyed that spear of light in matter of second. Rias said, shocked at Naruto. Even Ni-san can't do it like that. She said, shocking her peerages. No wonder he is being called as the King of Destruction. His power really unbeatable. Akeno said as she saw Naruto yawned. As he heard those comments around him, Naruto became more bored as continued to walk forward until he reached the large magic circle where the Earthbreaker spell was brewing. So who is the bastard that is calling me weak, huh? He asked playfully as he released his aura. The dimension around him started to shake from the power he was emitting in waves. He focused his energy into one leg as he stood in front of the yellow magic circle, and with his hands still in his pockets, he stomped his leg down to the ground. A violent shake was sent throughout the area as the dimension tore apart around him and the massive earthquake made a huge crack across the Japan. You bastard? Kokabiel grounded out as he landed on the ground a little ways away from Naruto. Kiba gritted his teeth as he held his sword of betrayal in front of him. He shattered the Earthbreaker spell just by sending his own magical power through it. Just how strong is this guy? Asked Issei as he stood next to Rias. The Gremory heiress was suddenly reminded that her brother liked to tell her about their other cousin who was massively powerful, but a bit eccentric in his own way. When she was small, she always said that all of his feats were exaggerating, but after seeing this, maybe she has to start believing her own brother. King of Destruction. Kokabiel cried out with a smirk on his face. Instead of working for Sears X Lucifer, how about you switch over to our side? He asked as Naruto looked at him with lazy eyes and uninterested. We will provide you with endless resources, we can give you all the power, money and women you can possibly want. Kokabiel chuckled as placed his hands on his hip. Why work for those bastards who always mourn their death god? What are you saying? Xenovia cried as she stepped forward. What do you mean the god is dead? Kokabiel grinned as he traced his chin with his fingers. Oh, I wasn't supposed to tell, but since I'm starting a war, why the hell would I care? The fallen angel let out a boisterous laugh. In the last great war, all 4 Satans along with God died. Shock coursed through everyone's mind as the incredible news registered in their heads. God died? Xenovia mumbled as she shook. You lie, that is not possible. Rias cried as she glared at Kokabiel. Valpier, who was still kneeling on the ground, smiled. So I was right. It is the only reason why holy demonic swords can exist. There is no way God has died, I can still feel his love. Asia cried in tears as she leaned against Issei for support. Kokabiel laughed at the reactions of the people around him. I'm not lying, Michael has been the one operating heaven and the angels since the Great War. If you don't believe me, ask the King of Destruction-san over there. Kaneko looked at him as she asked. Is that true, Naruto-san? Naruto sighed as he scratched the back of his head. Yeah, that's true. He said as tears started to well up in Asia's eyes and Xenovia fell to her knees. But who cares about that senile old man? I'm devil after all. Kokabiel whistling. So you mean, you don't care with the fact that God is death? So the rumor saying that the King of Destruction is as idiot as ever is right. He said as he opened his hands. Excellent. With people like you, I become really interested with my wa. Before he could finish his words, suddenly the partial of Kokabiel's body vanished. Kokabiel stared into Naruto's eyes as he felt pain course through his body. Gggahhhhh. Kokabiel screamed before they watched Naruto grab him by the throat and threw him into the air. With Kokabiel no longer having partial of his wings, he just sailed through the air with a look of permanent fear etched onto his face. I don't believe it. Issei muttered as he watched the scenes from before. He can't even hold that. I know, Naruto-san is strong. But this is too strong? A woman voice asked as Kaneko looked at the maid with happy face. Graphia-san, she said happily as she walked to her. Quote ellipsis. You are coming too? She asked as Graphia nodded her head and looked at Naruto. They all then watched as Naruto made a black spiraling sphere and aimed it towards the falling Kokabiel, who was only now just beginning to make his way back towards the ground. Now watch this, Rias. Naruto said as Rias looked at him. This is how you use power of destruction. Black Gale was all anyone heard as they watched the biggest and most powerful power of destruction in their life as it destroyed Kokabiel even before he could cry anything and making a big hole of dimensional gap in that place. Looking back at the crowd, Naruto saw that almost everyone was looking at him with shock and awe. Even the 2 sisters of 2 of the current Satans were stunned silent after seeing his display of power, which was understandable since he made Kokabiel look like an insect. Naruto-san, Kaneko called the ball. Yeah, Kaneko. Naruto said with blank face. You have a lot to explain. Kaneko said as Naruto and Graphia nodded. Yeah, a bloody body stumbled as the light from the magic circle disappeared. Vali's breathing was labored. He had heard about the power of the yellow flash, but he never thinks that he was that strong to make the juggernaut drive looks like a playing little kid. He couldn't imagine the years of labor the exorcist could have put into mastering the Zenith Tempest to make it like that. Ha 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 ha, it seems that Minato is getting your ass today. A female voice commented as Vali only grinned. It seems that the strongest Yukai in the world is mistaking my appearance. Vali said while smiling without looking at his partner talk. It doesn't matter how a man looks in this world, only that he finds happiness, and today I found my happiness. Kurama snorted, tch. Whatever you said, brat, she said as Vali merely smiled and they became quiet for a moment. What are you doing here, Kurama? Vali asked as Kurama smirked. That's a good question, brat. Kurama said as she walked from the shadow and Vali looked at her with thin smile. I didn't expect you to be so young, Kurama the Yoko. He commented as Kurama laughed. Haha, calling me young like that, huh? You sure are evil, huh, Vali-chan? You should give me the respect and reverence and respectfully call me with a sense of defeat in your voice. Kurama Onisan. That's how it should be, Lucifer brat, she said as Vali eyes twitched. At the same time, he dismissed the previously cordial attitude as he started to release a sense of animosity towards Kurama that seemed strong enough to harm others. So I asked you once again, what are you doing here? Vali asked. His eyes glinted with a sharp gaze that showed a fearlessness that was totally unlike a person that just getting beaten to death. However, Kurama only dropped her shoulders and showed a very disappointed look. It seems that the self-proclaimed strongest White Dragon Emperor is only this strong, huh? Now tell me, do you want fighting against person that is stronger than the Yellow Flash? Italy, Vatican, Holy Garden. At the same time, the sky was tinted in orange, signifying the sun starting its descent into the night. By that time it was late in the afternoon or early evening. The various patrons and workers of the church wherein the garden was located were already leaving for the day. Some went back to their homes in order to go back to their families that awaited for them. Others went on to the city to seek enjoyment for the coming night, while the others simply walked away not really knowing where they were heading for in the dark future. Yet, despite the late hours of the afternoon turning to the early evening, an exorcist in white uniform around the age of 26 or 27 and maybe 28 stood in front of a beautiful garden. Despite that fact that the church was quickly being vacated, that there was no longer anyone barring him, the boy, he still stayed behind. After all, he liked to stay in there. Thus, despite the passing of time, the man's blue eyes was firmly placed upon the sky that was covering the sky. He was staring at them intently as if he was reading the flow of the fate from the star. But he didn't see it only because of the fact that he was reading the stars. There was just some form of beauty in the star's unnaturalness. The man sighed as he closed his eyes. I know that you're there, Naruto Ball. He said calmly as from the shadow behind him walked the ever-smiling Naruto. Naruto smiled as he walked toward the blonde-haired man. It seems that your skill isn't dull yet, Minato Namikaze. He commented as the blonde-haired man turned toward him with the sun showing his appearance. The man in front of Naruto was a fairly tall, fair-skinned man with bright, blue eyes and spiky, blonde hair that has jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face. He was also dressed in a short cape, white pants, golden buttons and a belt, fastened together by a white belt buckle is inscribed with the word hope. He was Minato Namikaze, who is known to be the strongest exorcist ever with his Longinus, the sword of God Zenith Tempest. Minato looked at the ever-smiling ball with serious eyes as he asked, "What are you doing here?" Naruto quickly shrugged. "I just want to tell the message from your daughter, Zenobia Namikaze." He said while smiling, tried to lighten the stiff atmosphere between them, but still failed as Minato still didn't change his expressions. Naruto cleared his throat. Well, all three Excalibur had been destroyed, and I killed Kokabiel myself, but unfortunately there I made some careless mistake there, he said while scratching the back of his hair as Minato sighed. I assume that you are letting Kokabiel to speak about that senile old man's death, right? Minato said as Naruto raised his eyebrows interested. Well, it seems that you're really becoming stronger, huh? Boy Scout, Naruto said playfully as the blonde-haired man narrowed his eyes at him and he raised his hand. Hey, I'm joking there, Minato, easy man. Hearing the ball joked around him, making Minato grew angry. The devil's very presence just screamed that I'm stronger than you, Boy Scout. And that really pissed Minato to no end. As much as he wanted to end this devil, he had to maintain his calm inside the holy garden. Minato closed his eyes as he started to turn back. How many of my people were present? He asked as Naruto thought about it. If I'm right, it's only Xenovia there, and she was very shocked to say the least. Naruto said as he looked at the blonde-haired man to see his reaction, and much to his angry that the exorcist in front of him still stayed as calm and emotionless as he showed. You aren't meeting her? She is your daughter, you know. Minato stayed silent for a moment as he answered, I don't care. Xenovia is not child anymore. At that statement Naruto finally snapped, why you? Don't forget Naruto Uzumaki Ball. Minato said as he looked at him, pouring all of his killing intent to the devil behind him. We are enemy and it will be like that, until the end of time. He said as he teleported away from the holy garden. If Minato bothered to turn around at any point between their conversation and teleporting away, then he wouldn't have missed the frown marring the ball. Tengu Mountain, Kyoto. Few minutes later, inside Naruto and Graphia temporary house was Graphia, who was cooking for 4 of them tonight. Smiling at the thought of having a nice, warm dinner, she quickly frowned when she felt 2 other presences inside the tent. He didn't recognize either of them and that worried him somewhat. Stepping inside, he saw Kuroka in her usual black robe with her arms crossed in front of her as 2 boys looking around the age of 18 stood in front of her. One had blonde hair with blue eyes and wore glasses that rested on the bridge of his nose. He wore a smart-looking business suit with a sword that made his senses go haywire over. A holy sword that was more commonly known as Caliburn. The other was a man with monkey-like features with dark hair and black eyes. What stood out about him was that he was wearing Chinese armor that dated back to the Three Kingdoms era of China and wielded a dark red staff that was draped over his shoulder. Vali wants us to unite quickly, Kuroka. His betrayal to Azazel and Grigori will commence soon and he will need us. The blonde-haired man said softly as Kuroka merely nodded. The Yellow Flash already fought with him in his way to deal with Kokabiel, and from the fact that even he was there, it means that the Yellow Flash and King of Destruction are starting their hunt. The Monkey King warned as Kuroka nodded again. I know it's just, something came up. Something I was not expecting to happen. I can't leave now, she said, scratching her hair. The Chaos Brigade will be moving soon, Kuroka. We need you to come with us now. If you don't, then your safety will be in jeopardy. The blonde-haired man warned as Kuroka sighed again. But her face expression suddenly changed when she noticed Graphia looking towards them with a serious and angry look on her face. Graphia-san, Kuroka said nervously as she watched the silver-haired woman walk toward them with serious and angry look in her face. Who are you two and why are you here? Graphia asked coldly as she folded her hands under her beautiful S. My name is Arthur Pendragon, the real descendant of King Arthur Pendragon, the blonde boy introduced while bowing courtesy. And this is Bhikkhu, descendant of Sun Wukong. We are here to collect our comrade. Comrade, huh? Graphia asked, still with angry tones, and Kuroka at the other hand gulped as her ears and her twin tails drooped. She forgot to mention that. Forgot or not, she needs to come with us. Our group leader is expecting us all back soon. Arthur explained as Graphia looked at the blonde's blue eyes. I'm so sorry to disappoint you, Arthur Pendragon. But please know that Kuroka is living with me and Naruto-sama, so I ask you to please go away now. She said as she took a step closer. We don't not wish to fight with you, devil, but we will if it proves necessary, Arthur stated coldly as his fingers tips brushed against Caliburn. We were also here to ask you, Graphia Lucifuge and Naruto Ball, if you two would join the Chaos Brigade. Graphia smiled as she summoned many ice knives, circling around her. We already gave our answer and we surely declined. Whoever your boss is should really stop trying to recruit us, she stated as she showing them her killing intent, making 2 persons in front of them gulped and put a fighting stance. The monkey whistling playfully, you sound awfully unsure of yourself, the descendant of Sun Wukong said playfully as Graphia shrugged. She didn't care much for what these 2 teen had to say. Call it what you will, but I know my power and I can sense yours. I've met the true Monkey King, that damned Sun Wukong, and you don't even compare to him, she said to Bhikkhu, who gulped slightly at the mention of his ancestor. And you blonde boy over there, she said, now looking at Arthur. If you think just because you wield one of the strongest holy swords and that it makes you indestructible, then you are greatly mistaken. I have fought against that sword before along with its sister swords. So do not think it scares me in the slightest because I have seen much worse. The moment he did though, she saw Bhikkhu extend his staff and it shoot towards him while Arthur drew Caliburn. She narrowed her eyes at the staff and saw it was covered in a thick veil of energy that she was familiar with. Senjutsu. The staff was about to hit him when Bhikkhu, Arthur and even Kuroka were surprised to see that suddenly the silver-haired woman vanished from her place. But suddenly Bhikkhu, impaled by hundreds of ice knives in surprise as devil energy enhanced kick slammed into his stomach, knocking the wind out of him completely. Arthur held Caliburn out in front of him and looked ready to strike with the holy sword but had to stop when many knives circling around his head and he looked at her cold eyes. So it's ended? No. Stop. Kuroka suddenly cried, stopping Graphia to finish the teens in gruesome manner. Please don't kill bot each of them, nya, she pleaded, shocking Arthur and Bhikkhu. Graphia looked at Kuroka eyes for a moment as she flicked her hand and all ice knives around two teens vanished. Not saying a word, Graphia and Kuroka watched a magic seal appear beneath Bhikkhu and Arthur and teleported them away. When Kuroka wanted to take her leave, suddenly she felt the time around her stopped and she glanced to look at the angry Graphia. Can you please explain to me now, Kuroka-chan? At that time Kuroka finally knew her doom. Underworld, Ajuka Beelzebub hidden facility. Current time. Stepping out of the magic portal, Naruto quickly found himself standing outside of a large castle that stood out in the middle of nowhere with no signs of life anywhere within the facility. Of course he chose somewhere so weird, he said to himself as he walked forward and, showing great strength, pushed the large wooden doors open and began walking inside. The great hallway was lit up like a Christmas tree. Multiple doors lay on each side of the wall with a large elevator right at the end with metal doors. Beside the elevator doors he saw an intercom system. Walking forward he pushed for the elevator doors to open but was not surprised when they refused to open and he heard a voice call out from the intercom system. Who is it? I'm too busy to see anyone right now. Make an appointment or something, a dreary voice called, making his eyes roll and shake his head. He leaned forward and pushed the button of the intercom. Hey dumb ass, you either let me down to that home you call a lab or I will destroy this place to the ground and kick your ass. He was not surprised that he got silence for the next 30 seconds before the voice spoke again in disbelief. Naruto-san? Looking up to the right corner of the ceiling he saw a video camera moving in his direction and stop when it landed on him. He gave the camera a wave and grin as it was only a second later that the elevator activated and the metal doors opened. A minute later Naruto watched as the elevator doors opened and he found himself staring at a large warehouse-like room underneath castle with countless test tubes, crash test dummies, machines, tanks, giant chess pieces and all kind of weird stuff that he would expect from the man he was visiting. Walking forward, it did not take Naruto long to find the person he was looking for. Yo Ajuka, it seems you are still a freak as usual, huh? Naruto said while grinning cheerfully as the man in question turned around and lifted his welding visor to reveal a young man around the same age as Naruto. Ajuka was a handsome man with short black messy hair and brown eyes with a light complex. While other devils would have worn royal-looking robes specifically designed for pure blood devils, Ajuka stuck with a tattered pair of jeans and a greased shirt that had rips going up and down the sleeves. Naruto-san, it's about damn time you came back, the devil said, standing up, standing little bit shorter than Naruto as the two grasped hands before going in for a one-armed hug, patting the other's back as they did. While he was not as close to Ajuka as he had been with Graphia and Sirzex, but he was still the only one that can put into Naruto's idiotic experiment and task, with Graphia as the other exception. He was also one of the reasons Naruto took part in the Devil Civil War, as he and the others were forced him to take part in. Well, it seems that it's the time that I go home and created something here again, he said, taking a step back and looking around the place. I guess I should not be surprised that the current Beelzebub has not changed all that much. You're back for good now? I can name a lot of people that would be very happy with that. Not quite home yet, Naruto said, watching Ajuka's face fall slightly. I'll be coming home soon, but let's just say I have a few loose ends I need to tie up first. I'm actually here because I need something from you. Ajuka's eyes shot up in surprise. The last he checked, Naruto never asked much from anyone. Normally it was the other way round. Looking at Naruto curiously, he asked, "What did you have in mind?" Naruto pointed to the desk that Ijuka was working on and picked up a king chess piece as he held it out in his hand and examined. That alone gave Ijuka an idea of what his old friend had planned. "Just say that I will go into someplace very far and I am afraid I cannot leave this place to young one alone or Kurama, so I need your help," he said as he tossed the king chess pieces into Ijuka. "I am coming to ask if you wouldn't mind creating a set of evil pieces for me." "You serious?" Ijuka asked skeptically before Naruto nodded. "Why ask me, when you can create it yourself?" Naruto sighed. "It should be you, because if I am the one who make it then I cannot put my plan into action," he explained while scratching the back of his head. Ijuka just stared at him for a moment before he shrugged. "Sure, why not," he said before motioning for him to follow him through the lab. "I actually already have a set created you for back when they first created. The first sets I ever made were mine, yours, Seraphal's, Falbium and Searzek's. You're the last of the 5 of us to come and collect his set." Naruto just nodded as they arrived at some kind of large locker system spread across an entire part of the underground lab. They had letters on separate categories of the lockers with the first letter from the surname. B, B, B. "Ah, here we are," Ijuka said as his wings appeared out of his back and he flew up into the air. Naruto watched him open one of the lockers and take out a small chessboard which he could see had the ball symbol on the front of it. He watched Ijuka blow the dust of the top of the evil piece set and showing just how long it had been there. He then came back to the ground. "Need some explain for that thing?" Ijuka asked, but Naruto merely shook his head. "You sure? I already made few change from your old data and plan, you know?" "Nah, I will figure it out myself," he said as a thought came across him when his thoughts went to a certain stray cat. "But can I ask that would it be possible to bring in a person who already has an evil piece within them but is no longer part of a peerage?" Ijuka looked at him oddly. "It sounds like you're talking about a stray devil," he asked, but Naruto just looked at him, waiting for an answer. Ijuka sighed before scratching the back of his head. "It's possible if the correct situation is met. If said reincarnated devil has been released from the peerage, then it is possible. Another way would be to just trade the pieces that it took to reincarnate the person and give your free pieces to the high-class devil." "What if that devil was dead?" he asked in all seriousness and saw Ijuka narrow his eyes slightly and look his friend over. It was an odd thing for him to ask, but he answered it anyway. "If the devil died, then the piece or pieces will still be active within their body. However, if another devil wants them to join the peerage, then all they would need to do is do the natural ritual. The old pieces will be replaced with the new pieces. As long as they're not part of a major house, then it shouldn't be a problem." Naruto nodded as Ijuka looked at him. "You staying here long or are you leaving right away? I know of some people that would very much like to see you." "Well, I'm not the one who is going home. My peerage is." "You mean? I will go?" "No, it's me and Grafia that will go into that far place and my peerages will be stationed in my old man place for the cases if something dangerous happens," Naruto explained as Ijuka sighed and folded his hands. "I was actually talking about him," he said with Naruto now looking down, knowing full well who he was talking about. "What else can I say? I am actually shoving all my responsibility to his ass and going away into my own way like that," Naruto said as he grabbed his head. "I won't be surprised if he bears a grudge toward me and Grafia," he said as Ijuka sighed once again, hearing his lament. Hey Naruto-san. Maybe what you two did is surely bad with leaving Underworld in such condition without such a leader like you or Grafia-san. But looks at the Underworld now, it becomes what all of us dreaming," Ijuka said as Naruto only looked at him. "If someone needs to say sorry then it should be us, you know. We really keep forcing you and Grafia-san more than what we should." That made the look Naruto was giving him to soften, but he shook his head. "It doesn't matter. The fact that all of you are shaping the future of Underworld alone is something that I didn't do, but it's something that all of you did," he explained while grinning, making the Satan blushed hearing his compliment. The two old friends caught up and Naruto spoke about the things he had seen, done and the people he had met while he asked Ijuka what life as a Satan was like. The simple answer was that it was boring and he really hoped to retire within the next century. Being a Satan was not all it was cracked up to be. Elementary country, fire country, Konohagakure. At the same time, on the Hokage monument, appeared a black-haired young girl around 14 years old with a giant stone sword, Order Soul's sword, on her back. Her main attire consists of a dark teal nun outfit with light blue accents, a white veil over her head with light blue accents, a brown satchel slung on her right hip where she holds some books, and brown boots with black straps in an X-shaped pattern. She also wears a reversed cross necklace around her neck. The girl opened her cerulean eyes as she looked around her. "So this is old man's home world, huh?" She groaned. "What a pain in the ass to ask me come here, Kurama Oba-san?" she said as she scratched the back of her head and vanished from that place in ball magic circle. Naruto sighed as he folded his hands with confused look. "Now where the hell am I again?" he asked, wondered aloud as he saw himself resting against a tree. He then looked up and saw her. It was Graphia, and she was wearing a beautiful white dress. Her hair was down, without any ribbons or frill, just loose long to show her long silky beautiful silver hair. She looked at Naruto sweetly. "Naruto," she called out to the ball. Naruto looked at her stupefied at her awesomeness and beautiful, "Graphia," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, making the delicate woman weak in the knees. She grabbed Naruto's hand and put it on her cheek. "Your hand is so warm," Graphia said gently and sweetly as she felt Naruto's warmth on her face. Hey, Graphia. What's going on here?" Naruto asked, clearly confused at her suddenly bold attitude. "It doesn't matter. I always wanted to spend some time like this with you," Graphia said after a few moments, a small smile on her face. "Naruto," she continued as she pushed him gently to the ground and opened her dress. Underneath it was her delicate-looking body. Her skin was absolutely flawless, perfectly smooth and a porcelain white in color. She laid nude for Naruto to take, until, "What a pain in ass," Naruto muttered with troublesome look as he touched her forehead. "Don't be a naughty cat now, okay?" he said while smiling as he destroyed the dream with his power of destruction. Tengu Mountain, Kyoto. Current time. Graphia woke up with a gasp. She had a dream, and a very bold one too. She blushed heavily as steam seemingly rose from her head in her embarrassment. Inconceivable. To be in such a dream. And like that. What is wrong with me? She asked herself while looking at Naruto that was sleeping like usual. "Naruto," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as her hands then begun to move down her body and her fingers slid into her opening and begun to rhythmically glide in and out. She began to pant and whimper as she blushed at the sensations generated from this simple, yet oh so perverse action. She had little time for things like this in her lifetime, due to her trying to hide her actual. However, it felt so good. Graphia whimpered as her fingers moved even faster in her crevice. She then began to buck a bit, before her eyes glossed over at the feeling of pleasure she was having. She panted each time and whimpered softly and continues. Her fingers went in and out with a tad of difficulty due to her virgin body, but still produced enough lubrication to make it feel good. She began to pant harder, her face turning redder as she began to think of a certain blonde boy as she kept going at it. Naruto. Please, she whimpered and panted. She began to imagine Naruto's body uniting with hers and began to insert and pull her fingers faster and harder. She then whimpered once more as she bit her lip, finally reaching her climax. Her eyes teared up a bit as she whispered a single name into the darkness of the night. "Naruto," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as she finally allowed her sleep take over her. Dream world, Naruto's dream. Current time. Naruto closed his eyes with blushed face. "Oh my. Oh my, it's so close that I will have another boy or daughter," he muttered playfully while scratching the back of his head. "You are not satisfying her, maybe she wanted another offspring," a voice asked as Naruto grinned. "Bah, today is her safe day. If we want some adult playtime together, then it must be not a safe day," he declared boldly as the voice giggled. "You are really a funny one, you know," the voice commented as Naruto rolled his eyes. "By the way, what are you doing here? And can you reveal your true self to me now?" Naruto asked as he looked at the dimension that a bit distorted and revealed a humanoid appearance from there. The dimension slowly revealed a young blue-haired girl with a black outfit and ribbon, and had deep red eyes that seemingly held no emotion. "What are you? It seems that you are not ordinary plaything?" Naruto asked the girl as she bowed courtesy and touched her chest. "I am a succubus. I was to send you a message in your dreams. But I never expected someone to be able to break my illusions in dreams," the succubus said from telepathy. "Then why don't you just talk? Telepathy is not the best way to talk, you know. Naruto asked as the girl shook her head. Thoughts are much better. I cannot hide nor embellish things. Saying only what is on your mind. She said using telepathy as Naruto sighed. Well, whatever. So who is the one that sent you here? Naruto asked, putting his hand on his hip. Kurama-sama sent me here to give you a message. She said what you have been asking for already found it. Go meet her. Also, she wishes to inform you that they are impossible to find at the moment and to forgive her for that. She explained as Naruto nodded. Naruto smiled as he patted her head. All right. Tell Kurama thanks and I hope that I will meet her again. The little devil blushed and nodded. Oh, by the way, can I ask for a favor? He asked, grinning slyly. Elemental country, some unknown place near Sanagakure. At the same time, a black-haired girl woke up while gasping as she touched her head. Quote ellipsis. Why the hell am I dreaming about getting scolded by mother because of having with father? She whispered as she remembered that her silver-haired mother was angered by the fact that she played with his father while he was sleeping. Mana-san, is there something wrong? A red-haired guy around 16 years old asked as he looked at the black-haired girl. No, it's nothing. I just have a bad dream, she said as her friend raised her eyebrow. Bad dream? Yeah, a dream where I got killed because I'm having a dirty with my father. She explained with serious look. The red-haired guy who heard it just stayed silent as she let out confused, huh? Kyoto, Yukai City. At the morning. Naruto. So you get my messages, huh? Kurama said as she sipped her tea and looked at Naruto that walked to her. As Naruto walked towards her, she noticed he had carried some letter with the seal of some private school as she sighed. So you already found out? She asked as Naruto shrugged. Yeah, her school already sent the mail about her runaway habit, but this is the first time that she has vanished more than one day. He explained as Kurama smiled and looked at him. Angry? Nope. You sure? She is your daughter, you know? Kurama asked as she leaned on her chair. Well, actually normally I will be angry at you, but because this is what we need to move with faster flow. Then maybe it's what I must sacrifice. Naruto said with serious look as she smiled. That's really like you, Kurama said as she walked into one of the cabinet. Back to the topic, I already found our land, however much time has passed. Due to that I came to some arrangements with a rather hard to find individual. You mean? Naruto asked as she grinned. Congratulations brat, you can go home now, Kurama said with happy tone. Well, that's great, Naruto muttered as she frowned. You aren't happy? I am happy, Naruto said as he closed his eyes. It's just that, I don't know what I should do if I'm meeting them, he said, hiding his eyes with his hand. You mean, if they know that's you are a monster and something like that? No, I just don't know what I should said to them about the truth, Naruto said as Kurama sighed. Well, what can we say? Because that's the truth, which we can't change again, Kurama said as Naruto nodded. Back to the topic, what are you asking her to do? Naruto asked as Kurama grinned. I ask her to collect all remaining bijus and take them here, so they and their Jinchuriki will be separated from the damned elemental country. Kurama grinned as Naruto eyed her with a distant look. Are you sure that's a good idea? Yup, absolutely, Kurama said spontaneously as Naruto's sweat dropped. Although it's kind sad thing for us, you know. After what this world did to us, we can just trust the true generation of this world with burden of this world and thing like that? Hearing Kurama speaking way, Naruto raised his eyebrow. So you already did that too, huh? He asked as she nodded. I already gave the command of Yukai Kyoto to Yukasha, Kurama said with sad tone. Yasaka was Kurama's adopted daughter. She was also Fox Yukai, albeit weaker one. She was a very talented leader and has wisdom to control all Yukai. Plus she was also pretty eager to prove herself. So our time to move is already coming, huh? Naruto said as he tossed something to Kurama and she caught it without problem. The rook chess pieces. So you are really serious to do that? Kurama asked while grinning as Naruto nodded his head. You and I have been together for 100 years. You are the only person that knows me the best with Graphia as the exception, and I know without you I can't move forward. So if this devil, can I ask one more thing? Then can you lend me your power for me? He stretched out his hand and smiled at Kurama, to which she quickly took hold off. She felt Naruto guide her out of her seat and both of them stood at each other. So we back to first step, huh? She asked while smiling as he grinned. Yup, back to step 1. Naruto grinned as she sighed. Naruto gathered his power as Kurama lay herself on the ground as Ball family magic seals appeared beneath them, lighting up the room in a shower of black and purple light. I am Naruto Uzumaki Ball, the king of destruction from Konohagakure and Ball clan. With my power and everything that I have, I command you Kurama no Yoko, to become my servant and lead a new life as my castle. With that, Naruto injected the pieces. Waves of enormous power was resonating from the two as the process continued. After a few moments it ended as quickly as it happened, the process finishing and quickly revealing Kurama that messaged her shoulder as Naruto smiled. So how is it? Need to ask, huh? Kurama said as she showed her devil wings and 9 tails. Let's rock. Japan, Kuoh, shopping district. Around the same time, here, Kuroka grunted as Graphia plunked a huge plastic bag containing an assortment of daily food into her arms, in addition to the several other bags that were already there. Mercy. The Nekosho groaned weakly as she tottered around, trying to balance the tower of plastic bags. I carried twice that amount all the time, Kuroka-chan, Graphia replied with a smirk. Just grow little spirit to carry that, she added as she threw another plastic bag to her. Why do you even need so much? You'd be surprised at how much Kaneko eats. The silver-haired woman replied blandly as she strolled down another aisle, eyeing the price tags with a practiced eye. And why isn't Sharon here doing this with you Nya? Kuroka shouted desperately as Graphia ignored her. She wanted to come, and possibly ask you some questions as well, unfortunately she had some other things to deal with. Graphia explained as she threw another plastic bag to the pile. Kuroka carefully caught it with grunt as she looked at the older woman. What happens to her Nya? Graphia sighed. It seems that Kokabiel attack, few days ago are making the conversation faster and unfortunately her school is the place where the meeting happened. She explained as she glanced at the 2 identical-looking packs of meat, trying to ascertain which one was worth more for less. Now can you be quiet here? I am trying to focus for a moment. Kuroka sighed as she looked at Graphia, who was picking up another huge bundle of fresh vegetables. I really can't think about it Nya? Graphia heard her mumbles as she looked at her. Think about, what? You know if Naruto-san and you have a child Nya? Kuroka said as Graphia looked at her with blank and shocked look. I mean you are very stern and organizer where Naruto-san is a bit eccentric and unpredictable. I really wonder what kind children do you two will ha what's with that face Nya? Are you serious? Huh? I ask, are you serious about what you are saying? Huh, serious about what? I really confused Nya. No I mean you are serious about the fact that you wondered about if I have a child. Graphia said with blank look. Yeah, why Nya? Kuroka said without any lie in her eyes as Graphia sighed. It seems that I haven't told you. No wonder you are coming back around this year after all. Graphia said as Kuroka blinked in confusion. Told me about what Nya? Kuroka asked really confused. Well the truth is that Naruto and I already ha. Ah. Graphia and Naruto's Nekosho, I never think that I will meet with you two here. Azazel said playfully as the 2 women glared at him. Azazel, what are you doing here? Graphia asked as she stood in front of Kuroka protectively. Hey, can't this old man welcomed in your little group? He said with Graphia's face not changing even once which led to him sighing and changing his appearance to a more serious one. After a few moments the fallen ones began speaking in a serious tone. So where is Naruto? He is not here. Graphia immediately said without any second as Azazel sighed. I can see that. What I want to ask is where he is. I don't want to tell you. Graphia coldly answered as Kuroka and Azazel sweat dropped at her cold answer with same thought. So cold. Both of them thought as Azazel shook his head. Well then can you pass this information to him? He said as Graphia raised her eyebrow. What is it? She asked as Azazel smiled. Something that will take his interest. Japan, Kuoh Academy. Few days later. Kateria please don't do this. Seraphal shouted as she stared up at a brown-haired woman wearing a revealing top and wore glasses over her eyes. A pair of devil wings were flapping in the air behind her, keeping her elevated while she sneered down at Seraphal and the group that was amassed around her. The reason Seraphal was there was because she and Seer's ex Lucifer who stood beside her with his wife Kushina were currently representing the devil community as a meeting between the 3 factions was set up in order to set up a new alliance and peace treaty between the 3 factions. Representing the fallen angel was the general of the Grigori Azazel, who came with his ally Vali, who was a silver-haired boy in his late teens. On the angel side was Seraph Gabriel and the current archangel Michael, who both had blonde hair and blue eyes with a halo hovering above their heads. Gabriel had 10 white wings while Michael had 12 golden wings. The meeting had gone off well, with a debate on the Kokabiel incident starting it off. Rias Gremory and Sona Citri had given their thoughts and stories on the matter, along with the thoughts of the Rias's pawn Ise Hyodo. Then Azazel had brought up the problem with the Chaos Brigade, and that when everything took a turn. Gasper's sacred gear was suddenly unleashed and everything around them had stopped, with only the leaders and selected members of the rest being able to move, and quickly determined that they were under attack. Rias went with her peerage to find Gasper and save him from the people that were trying to use his sacred gear to hurt them, while the leaders and Sona all stood within the confines of the meeting room. At least they did, until an explosion caused them to abandon the room and gather outside. When they did, the old symbol of Leviathan appeared and revealed Kateria Leviathan, the last known descendant of the Leviathan family. "You took everything from my family. You Seraphal Citri have what belongs to me. I want it back," she sneered as she held a staff in her hand and magic seals appeared in front of it. "So which of you will be the first to fall?" From the group, Azazel walked forwards and stared up at the old faction member and put his hands in his pockets as he stared up at her. "So the governor of the Grigori comes first to die," she said before her eyes narrowed when she saw him shake his head. "Nah, I'm not really in the mood to fight today," he said, getting odd looks from everyone who was watching. Michael and Sirzex both raised their eyebrows at the man who in their opinion always had a plan for the worst. "Though you do have an opponent if you really want one. He has been itching for a party as hell like this." Who is this trash you speak of?" Azazel smirked as his hand pointed upwards. "Look up." "What?" she asked as she looked up. When she did, her face morphed into a look of terror just as a large comet suddenly slammed near her right into the ground. Before anyone could ask about "What is that?" suddenly the cloud became darker as it showed lightning coming. What's going on here?" Sona asked as she looked around him and noticed that everyone except the young devils have various expressions. Seraphal looked ready to start crying as her hand over her mouth. Sirzex looked very nervous while Kushina looked stupefied at that. Gabriel looked confused, but all of them not as weird as what the leaders of Heaven and Grigori showed. Blank expressions and very confused as Azazel said, "Michael." "Yes. So you are calling him into this meeting?" Azazel asked as Michael nodded. "And I see that you are calling him too," Michael said as both of them looked at the middle. Carter was black-haired man and blonde-haired man clashing there respectively, sword causing lightning spark and black aura clashed around them. "Damn, Boy Scout, you devil?" Naruto and Minato muttered in deadlock as they opened their mouth. "What the hell are you doing here?" That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.